Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you've never seen me before, then hi, welcome. So I am so excited for today's video because it is the first fall video that I'm going to be posting this year. Although, let me just tell you this, okay? I have labeled myself as a fall girly. Although where I live, we don't experience fall weather at all. We don't get to see the leaves change. We don't get to feel that fall weather. It's basically summer all year long where I live. It's a tropical island, so but I went to visit Chicago and it was during the fall time, and I just remember it was just so stunning, so beautiful, and again, feeling that fall weather was just so nice. I feel like I'm a cold girly as well, a cold weather girly, and it's kind of between not too cold but not too hot, that cozy chilly weather. I fell in love with it. I mean, I always kind of knew I loved fall, that time of the year. I also love the holidays. Christmas is my favorite holiday, always has been, always will be. But when I visited Chicago, it was kind of a confirmation for me. Anyways, the point is, because I feel I'm rambling on, I love the fall time. I still love to get into the fall spirit, read fall books, decorate my room, dress according to the season, and yeah, just do all the fall fun cozy activities. So I thought that I would recommend you guys some fall books, and I truly think if you haven't read these books, you must, okay? During this fall, please do so, because trust me, you won't regret it. It'll just, again, get you more into that fall spirit. So as you can see, I have decorated my room. Well, you can't see my bed, which I also decorated, or my desk, but you can see behind me I have decorated with some fall garlands and some really cute pumpkins and acorns and leaves and just other fall decor, as well as a cozy blanket. Oh, you can't see it, can you? There we go. Okay, so I bought this really cute fall blanket. Let me tell you, it is the softest blanket that I have ever bought, and I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed. And as you can see, I'm also wearing a very fall themed sweater. Okay, I had to stand up so you could see it because literally cutest sweater I have ever owned. As you can see, it has a bunch of pumpkins on it, and it just feels all soft, and I'm obsessed, absolutely obsessed. Actually, getting into the book recs, I have divided them into categories, so I'm going to be recommending you some thriller, fantasy, and of course romance fall themed books. They're not necessarily maybe in a fall setting or during the fall time, but I feel they just give off fall vibes, whether it's because they're just cozy or just, I don't know, something about the book just gave me fall vibes. You just have to take my word for it, okay? And trust me.
He did the Monster Mash.
Okay, so the first thriller book that I'm going to be recommending you, it's actually a series, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. This is more YA, and this trilogy follows Pip, a high school senior, who investigates the murder of Andy Bell. So basically what they said was that Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend, Sal Singh, and then he killed himself because he was feeling guilty about doing so. Now, this is what the police and basically most of the community and the people in this small town believe would happen, except Pip. She has to do her senior project, and she chooses as the topic the Andy Bell case. Starts out as just an investigation where she interrogates people who were potentially involved, but then it turns out into something more. And then basically the brother of Sal Singh, Ravi Singh, gets involved, and he starts helping Pip with this case. They become kind of partners in crime, a duo. My favorite duo to ever exist. I love them so much. There's just so many plot twists. I don't think you see a single one coming. I did not. They all took me by surprise. That's basically the premise, the general premise of the first book. The second and third, it does keep following Pip and Ravi. They're investigating different cases, but it all connects somehow. The brain of Holly Jackson, how she wrote the first book, and I mean, I don't know, I'm guessing she had an idea of how to end the third book, because you have to set up clues where then when you finish the whole trilogy, people who paid attention realize those little clues, and they're oh my gosh, she's so talented, really good writer. What I also loved about the series is that I felt in each book I was there with them. She just really knows how to include the reader in the story, and I love being a part of it. Okay, I got to live out my FBI dreams. I feel it's a great series to entertain yourself during this time of the year. Next is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, or Riley Sager? I think it's Riley Sager. Anyhow, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. So this story follows Casey Fletcher. She's a recently widowed actress who retreats to her family's lake house in Vermont to escape some very bad press. And she just went there to basically forget about everything, disassociate, and bring her problems away. While she's there though, she starts to get bored. So what does she decide to do? She decides to spy on her neighbors who live in the house across the lake from her family's lake house. I think that was obvious, right? Anyway, so she watches Tom and Catherine Royce from, pretty sure it's like the back porch of the lake house. As you can see from the cover, their house, like the whole front part of it, it's like all windows, and when it's nighttime, if you have any lights on any room, you can basically see everything inside. Well, Casey could because she used binoculars. One day, Casey saves Catherine from drowning in the lake, and after that they kind of become acquaintances. Catherine visits like Casey a couple times like at her house, and Catherine starts confiding in Casey about some things that are happening in her life regarding her marriage. Casey, by their conversations, starts realizing that their marriage is not as perfect as it seems. One day, Catherine suddenly goes missing. Of course, Casey suspects Tom of foul play, and so it kind of just goes on from there. But oh my gosh, like I truly did not know where this book was gonna go. I don't know, I felt like I was so into the story that I kind of just didn't see what was coming when it like was thrown at me, and so it really took me by surprise. Like I was absolutely shook. I was like, what? That's what a good thriller does to you. You just kind of like are there for the ride, and then obviously at the end you kind of just like realize what just happened, you process it, and you're like, that was insane, absolutely crazy. It was so fast-paced, so intriguing. I felt like since the beginning you really get, again, invested first of all in the drama, and then when Catherine goes missing or she vanishes, then it starts to get like even more intense, and you like just get even more invested, and you're like, again, where's this going, what's gonna happen? I had never read a Riley Sager book before, and this really like made me want to read more of his books. A lot of his books are now my TBR for fall, for spooky season. I don't know if like this is like the vibe, that's just how he writes, like the fact that like the plot twists are like so out there and so insane, but if it is, I like it. Then I'm going to talk about the Natural series. I'm going to show you first like how many books like this series has, and then I'm just going to hold the first book because like I can't, I mean I could, but I don't want to.
Oh, I wish I could, but I don't want to.
There's 4 books, but there's actually a novella after the 4th book, so technically 5. So this is YA thriller mystery suspense with a little bit of romance, may I add. And it's basically about a group of teenagers with exceptional abilities, and you could say gifts, who get recruited by the FBI to join this classified program to solve cold cases. The program's goal is to educate and hone their abilities or skills so they get trained, and then they can use them to help the FBI. Now our main character, like it's from her POV, Cassie Hobbs. Well, actually each book has 2 POVs, Cassie's POV and Anonymous POV. Obviously you don't get to find out who it is until the end of the book. I felt like that's a very interesting aspect of like this whole series in general. Also, plot twists like absolutely got me. Hey, I don't know if I'm just like dumb, but truly I think I can see a plot twist coming if it's like easy enough to figure it out. But like when I recommend you a thriller book and it's like really good, it's because like I didn't see the plot twist coming, okay, and I just could not figure it out, and it took me by surprise. That's it. Apart from that, I also love the found family in this, so I really connected to each character like individually. That's what I loved about it. I feel like they're all the main characters, and like in each book I feel like each book was focused on like a different character in this friend group. By the end they really become a family. I feel like you kind of get the sense Cassie Hobb, like maybe it's all about her, but like I loved how still each book gave you backstory on each of the rest of the characters in this friend group, and it was like actually insane to me how attached I felt by the end of this series. Like I really dreaded finishing this series, and like I said, as a romance girly, there's a little bit of a romance in the series, kind of like a love triangle, so I'll just say that. The rest of the books that I'm mentioned for this thriller category, I read them on my Kindle, so I don't have a physical copy. So then we have The Silent Patient. Now this is a recent read of mine, and I just had to include it in this video because I feel like it really gives fall, again, cozy mystery thriller vibes. So this story focuses on Alicia, who after murdering her husband goes complete and utterly silent, like doesn't speak a single word. And this story kind of follows her psychotherapist Theo, who basically tries to like figure out what keeps Alicia from like talking, what is keeping her silent, what is the reason. It's a very slow process because many people have tried and failed. This does include diary entries, which I felt like kept the story very intriguing. It's a bit of a long book. I wouldn't say it was slow. It kind of leads you to it, but at the same time takes you by surprise. I honestly truly did not see that coming. Whoa, absolutely shocked to my core. I feel like it's really one of those books that like sticks with you. Just that for me, like after I finished it, I had to take some time to process it because I just couldn't believe what just happened. I don't know. I just, hey, thought it was a really good book, and I see why many people talk about it. Next we have The Teacher by Freddie McFadden. So this story is about a math teacher named Eve, who basically feels kind of like emotionally distant and unfulfilled from her husband. Now this story also follows a troubled student called Addie, where you find out like at the beginning of this book that she was at the center of the student-teacher affair scandal that happened in this school a year ago. Ever since then, Addie is not like very popular. Now as their path kind of like converge and their lives kind of intertwine, this story unfolds from both perspectives. I just felt like honestly this whole book was like a roller coaster of discomfort. For me it was just like really uncomfortable, but like in a good way, I guess. It was so uncomfortable that it was like so insane and crazy. You know, it's like when you watch like horror or thriller movies that it's like sometimes they're like so uncomfortable, but to the point that you're like, this is insane. Also, what's very interesting about this book is that I feel like it has definitely unreliable characters. So you kind of left, you know, with the doubt of like, should I really trust what this character is saying? How they're telling the story? Is it the truth? We may never know. So again, maybe it's not set during the fall time, but some way or another I felt like it gave me fall vibes, spooky season vibes. The next book is also by Freida McFadden and it's called The Housemaid. Actually, I'm really recommending the whole series. It's a trilogy and the third book just came out this year. My favorite is still the first one. I love that book so much. One of my favorite thrillers ever. The other two weren't as good, but I still like them enough that I love the whole trilogy and love this series, honestly. This trilogy follows Millie, and specifically the first book. She's a housemaid with a criminal past. She's like unemployed, living in her car, so she's desperate. And then she's hired by the very wealthy Winchester family. And so as a housemaid, she moves into their mansion and she lives there while basically doing all her housemaid duties. Obviously, this family doesn't know about her criminal past, so she has some secrets of her own. The first day on the job, she realizes it isn't as amazing as she thought it was going to be, and it gets very intense and very explosive very fast. Things like start escalating very quickly, and you kind of just get to go on this very insane ride as things keep occurring. Again, it's one of those like thriller books that really like stuck with me after I finished it. It impacted me so much, like the plot twist, that whole reveal. When I was finishing it, I was like first on the way to the airport and then like at the gate. I remember like reacting to the end of this book, and I feel like even like when the plot twist is revealed, somehow it gets crazier after that. So I remember just being absolutely like gagged, just like speechless, and I just really did not care for like how people were looking at me, and they were looking at me because I was reacting so crazy. Like I had so many reactions because like how could I not? But it's like those type of books that I feel like I was so into the story that I did not even like, I guess, realize people were looking at me or like how I was reacting like that loudly. I guess I feel like that's reason enough. Like I was so into the story and so invested that I kind of just like forgot about the real world and what was happening around me. That's all I can say. It's up to you, but I feel like you're making the wrong choice if you decide not to read this book. I'm gonna tell you about fantasy books that I feel like, again, I feel like fantasy, like it's a genre that like must be read for fall time. I feel like fantasy equals cozy. And anyways, all the books that I'm gonna be recommending to you are romantasy more specifically. So the first romantasy that I have for you is the only standalone that I'm going to be including for this category. The rest are series. This is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I feel like if you're going to do a video like recommending fall books, you have to mention at least one Ashley Poston book, and maybe I would recommend more, but honestly this is the only book that I've read by her like as of now. I feel like you've all heard about it. It's a pretty popular book. I mean, I feel like all her books are, but this one is definitely talked about a lot. I didn't know what to expect. I kind of just didn't know the style of her writing. I just went into it blindly. I loved it. Honestly, I really did. Weirdly so, not because of the romance, but because of the other topics that are touched on. This has magical realism, it also has forced proximity, it's also very much right person, wrong time, and it also has time travel. And like I said, the topics that are touched on in this book: grief, hope, and love. And I feel like they're very serious topics and important topics to be talked about, but I feel like they're also very delicate. The way she addressed them and wrote about them and explored them, I think it was done in a very beautiful way. This book follows Clementine, and she just inherited her aunt's apartment on the Upper East Side, and you know, she's in the moving process. Now she then discovers, though, like as she's moving into the apartment, that it's more magical than she thought. Growing up, her aunt had told her stories about like how magical this apartment is, but like, you know, as a child child, you believe them, but then you kind of grow up and you're like, obviously they were just stories. But now maybe she's like had some truth to it because she discovers she has a surprise roommate. It's this man who's basically living in the past, 7 years ago in the past. Very interesting plot line. Obviously she's hesitant at first because she doesn't know him, he's a stranger, and then to realize that he's living 7 years in the past, she first has to process this, but then, you know, kind of just goes on from there. It was really interesting, like that time travel aspect to it, kind of just like the rules, like if you kind of step out of it, you may come back and then you're not in the past anymore. He wouldn't be there. It's kind of like When the Apartment Decides. I just had never read a book like that, like these two characters who are not living in the same time, what's the word, time, mind going completely blank here, continuum, is that the word? Maybe that was the word I was looking for. Anyways, yet they have these very special and intimate moments where they just simply are there with each other, enjoying each other's company and just getting to know each other. Most of their conversations are like while he's cooking, then while they're eating, and I felt like those were like the most special parts of this book. Like I said, it wasn't really the romance that made me fall in love with this book because the romance was slow at first. You don't really get a lot of it. Nevertheless, the story just was beautifully written. Just made me sit back and reflect on all these themes, and I feel like as someone who's going or entering into her 20s, I turned 20 this year. Yay for me, I guess. That was just like really interesting and special for me to read about. It's more than just a romance book, and obviously very fall-like. Powerless by Lauren Roberts, or the Powerless series. It's a trilogy, and it does have a novella. The third book is still yet to come out. Comes out next year. I feel like that's reason enough for you to start reading the series if you haven't yet. So then you're caught up. This is YA. It doesn't have any spice in it at all, but I love that because I'm not a big, very heavy spice type of girly. Not my thing. The tension is still very much there. The chemistry, the banter, I feel like that's the thing most people talk about when they talk about this book or the series. The banter between these two characters and the tension is astronomical. It makes up for it, okay? It's also slow burn, and it's very much like enemies to lovers. It's also a forbidden romance, and it's forced proximity as well. It gives off Hunger Game vibes, and it also includes like Who Did This to You and Touch Her and You Die. This story takes place in Ilia. In this world, we have elites and ordinaries. Elites are people who have powers. They were gifted these powers by this plague that occurred decades ago. And then we have the ordinaries who don't have any powers. And the king of Ilia basically orders for all ordinaries to be banished because he believes these ordinaries like infiltrate and infect the elite society. Now our female character, Peyton Gray, is an ordinary, but all her life, like how she has survived all this time, has been by posing as a psychic. And one day she saves one of the prince's lives, and that prince is Kai Asner. I can't say that man's name without like getting all giddy. Like, did you see me? Anyways, he's an enforcer. He has quite the reputation. Big reputation. Big reputation. Oh, you really got a big reputation. Basically, his job as an enforcer is to see I start singing Taylor Swift and I just got a track. Banish all ordinaries. As I was saying, she saves his life. And basically that makes people vote for her to enter this trial. They're called the Purging Trials. And these trials were created to showcase the elite's powers. It kind of creates a problem, right? Because she's not really an elite, and Kai is also competing in these trials. Like I said, the fact that third book's coming out next year is reason enough for you to start the series. As of now, you have 3 books to read, so you'll be busy. Even though it's like action-packed, it's not like maybe a cozy fantasy, I feel like it's still perfect to read during this time of the year. Oh, and I did not do this for the first book, and I so deeply regret it, but please, while you read these books, if you can, listen to the audiobooks. The man who voices Kai. Now the final fantasy series that I'm going to be talking about is the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. So this is also a trilogy. I love the covers. So this romantasy series is enemies to lovers. It's also very much a slow burn. Oh my god, the slow burn in this series. So our female character is Evangeline Fox, and she basically grew up in her father's curiosity shop, where she basically learned like through her father about legends of immortals. So she's always kind of lived in this magical world, fairy tale world. She's always believed in it. At the beginning of this book, when her lover suddenly becomes engaged to her stepsister, she feels like she has no other option, a deal with a fate. And that fate is none other than Jax, the Prince of Hearts. Had me in an absolute chokehold while I was reading the series, and I still he's still one of my favorite like top book boyfriends. Obviously the deal is to stop the wedding, and she does it, makes a deal in exchange for 3 kisses. Did I say that right? Kisses. But she soon realizes her mistake and learns that bargaining with fate wasn't the smartest choice. Now the story kind of goes like, Evangeline knew that Jax was a fate, who his kiss was a deadly one, except for his one true love. It's very much slow burn, so just be patient, okay? Hang in there. I promise it's worth it. But it's so much fun because I feel like this whole series, it's kind of like an adventure. Definitely very magical, and just like the world building, like getting to learn about that was so interesting. The first book kind of like sets up everything, and then it's definitely like getting more interesting. Definitely get more invested in the story as things start escalating and it's even more high stakes. Okay, now I'm going to talk about all the romance books that I have for you that, again, I feel like just give off cozy fall vibes. The first book is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Now this is part of an interconnected standalone series, but I feel like this one is definitely the most coziest. I feel like the other one is like more spring, summery. This is a small town romance. It's also dual POV. It's forced proximity. It's grumpy sunshine. It's a closed door romance, and it's opposites attract. And finally, very much, and I feel like adds to the cozy aspect of this book and fall aspect as well. This I feel like gives off so much Gilmore Girls vibes, like the small town, the characters, and I feel like the two main characters give off Lorelai and Luke vibes. And honestly, that just made me love it even more because I adore Gilmore Girls, and it's my favorite show, obviously, to rewatch during the fall time. But anyway, so this is about Amelia Rose, who's a pop star, and her kind of stage name is Ray Rose. And at the beginning of this book, she's on her way to Rome, Kentucky, the small town the series is set in, because she needed a break from her life. But on the way there, her car breaks down, and she ends up in the front yard of Noah Walker. Obviously, he notices her and he goes to check on her, and ultimately but reluctantly invites her to stay at his house in his guest room while her car is being fixed. And he's a baker. He owns a pie shop, so I thought that was like the sweetest thing ever. He honestly just had a heart of gold, and I just absolutely fell in love with him. Amelia also, like, just I loved her. She's just so fun and quirky, and I feel like, again, that's why it's opposites attract. He's very grumpy and very kind of distant at first. You really get that, again, cozy small town feeling. Definitely a must, I feel like, for the fall time. Then we have Out on a Limb. I read that on Kindle Unlimited, so don't have the physical copy. This is accidental pregnancy. It's forced proximity. It's slow burn. It's got disability rep. It's found family. It's hot, tall, nerd MMC. I feel like that's a perfect way to describe him. And honestly, I feel that's my type. It's also got the roommates trope and the friends to lovers trope. Now, just because I said it's an accidental pregnancy trope, don't skip ahead, please read this book, because I thought the same thing. I put it off for so long because I honestly don't like that trope at all. But this book is like the exception because it does it so well, and it works. It just does. Our female character, Wynn, she's very much like independent, and she's basically spent her whole life proving it that she can do it all on her own. Her life kind of gets turned upside down very quickly when she has a one-night stand with Beau at this costume party, and obviously after that she finds herself pregnant with his baby. The fact that this works so well is because like they have such a healthy relationship. The way they dealt with it, oh my gosh, I loved the communication in this book. The fact that they talked about everything and anything as they should. Just the fact they could still work as a team, work together to kind of navigate this. It made the relationship feel so much more special. And I feel like the thing with like most accidental pregnancy books is that I feel like they fall in love and they kind of stay together because of the accidental pregnancy. This book didn't feel like that at all. I felt it's just like a very beautiful story. This book just honestly felt like a warm hug. Then we have Just Don't Fall by Emma St. Clair. This is a hockey romance. It's also got the bad boy MMC, fake dating, brother's best friend, small town romance, workplace romance. It's also a closed door romance, and I feel like it's got like rom-com vibes. So basically our MMC, Logan Barnes, ghosted and broke our filming character's Parker's heart. He was her childhood crush, and he's now a famous hockey player, and he's back in Harvest Hollow, which is the small town, not willingly. He recently went through an injury and he's now recovering from that. And also because of some bad press is why he now joins and is basically stuck playing for the minor league team that Parker works in. She's the social media manager for this team. Things are awkward, you know, they're tense, but then they get into a fake dating situation and it goes on from there. Honestly, I read this book last year and I don't remember much of it, but I do remember like at the time I loved it. Both of them were very funny, so their conversations conversations just like had me cracking up. This whole book just felt like very heartwarming and cozy and wholesome. Then we have Autumn Sky. I read that on my Kindle as well. This book is set during the fall time and it's very much like fall themed. It's fake dating, it's a billionaire romance, and it has a lot of Pretty Woman references. So if you're a rom-com lover and like specifically love that movie, that's a plus, right? Our female character, Autumn, she wants to prove to herself, feel like it's a necessity to her, that she always doesn't need to be like one of a pair, that she can be alone. I remember pretty sure she's a triplet, and I feel like all her other sisters are named after a season. However, there is a problem because she does need a date to her sister's wedding. So then enters Ren. He's a billionaire and a space entrepreneur, and so she kind of finds a way to help with her problem and also help him as well. Like they both get an advantage out of this deal or plan because Ren needs a fake girlfriend to kind of keep at bay those fortune hunters. Okay, he feels like it's the only way at this point. It did feel very like cozy, and I was definitely feeling the fall vibes. You know, it's not a book that maybe you'll think about forever, but it's a fun, quick romance that is very much fall themed. And finally, the last book that I'll be recommending for this video is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book, I recommend it for like summer, for fall, for like any time of the year. I feel like this book is perfect. I feel like it does have like that summer vibe to it, but definitely the fall vibe as well. Like it's very, very cozy and just very, very wholesome and heartwarming, and will definitely tug at your heartstrings. It's very, very emotional. I mean, ever since I read this book, it's remained one of my favorite romance books ever. It really just like touched me in a very, very special way. This is Childhood Friends to Lovers. It's also Second Chance. It's got a alternating timeline, and it's also very much slow burn. This book is about Macy and Elliot. Actually, hold on, I love this cover, but I adore this book, but I had to get the special edition, and actually I'm gonna hold it because I have to flex. I adore this cover so much. Definitely out of the three, it's my favorite, obviously. So this story follows Macy and Elliot, and like I said, they're childhood friends. They basically spent their summers together in Macy's house. It was kind of like her vacation home outside of San Francisco, and they basically spent most of their time enjoying each other's company in the library that Macy had in her closet. Her dad built it for her, and I thought like that was the cutest thing ever. These two are book lovers. I need my own version of Elliot. He's so... Anyways, unfortunately, they have a falling out, okay? And Macy stops talking to Elliot for more than a decade. They bump into each other after 11 years of, again, not talking to each other because Macy, you know, cut contact with him completely. And that unexpected run into each other is enough for Elliot to realize that he has to get her back. It just oozes comfort. It's just heart-achingly beautiful. And I just honestly loved the realness and honesty in this book, and just about like their relationship and their dynamic, their history, like the fact that they share that with each other is like so special. Definitely like prepare yourself for this book, but it is so worth it, and I really recommend you read it. Yay! We've reached the end of this video. Book recommendation videos are always like so long. I feel like they always take me so long to film because I'm a yapper, but I feel like, well, no, I hope so, but at least you read one of my recommendations, that you got some good book recommendations for this fall. I hope I succeeded in that. Let me know if you do end up reading some of the books that I recommended in this video. Let me know your thoughts. Always curious, always would love to know, either in the comments or just anywhere else. I always have my other social media platforms linked down below. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And I guess that's all I have to say. See you guys in my next video. Bye!